All right, everybody, it's that time again. It's the 8th annual Octo Jam. This is a game jam where people have an entire month of October to write a game for the Chip 8 platform. This is a virtual game console that was designed in 1977, and we're still making games for it. I'm joined by my co-hosts, Master Gofferin.
Hello once again.
Everdread.
Hey, it's me, Everdread.
And driving the games today will be John Chirp.
Hey, how's it going?
Okay, let's get started.
All right,
Please be safe with your driving, John.
The first game we're going to play here is Arcade, which is by Masty here, who's with us.
Oh, it's Akahad, actually.
Akahad? All right.
Oh, I love that run animation.
That's pretty good.
You need 20 orbs.
I've heard a variety of descriptions for our little character that we're playing as here over the past week or so. But for this one, I wanted to try and make a game that used the scroll operations because I felt like they didn't get much use. And then ultimately, I never used any of the scroll operations when I actually put it all together.
Yeah, you ended up clocking this pretty fast, right?
I did, yes. It's an XO chip game running at about 1,000 cycles per frame.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's cool. Oh, that's a really fluid animation. So how inspired were you by the funky levels from Toe Jam and Earl? Because I'm the major.
So that's exactly it.
Yeah,
that is exactly what it is. Oh my lord. Oh yes.
It's something that I have not seen any other game actually do. Like they're a very singular experience. This is really neat to see.
Yeah. So I was trying to work out. Okay, but what's the game? Like, what is the game going to actually be? And yeah, it's the Hyperfunk Zone from Toe Jam and Earl 2, and I guess the Back in the Groove game they made. Yeah. They also had the Hyperfunk Zone. And basically, it's a side scroller, but you can turn into a little ball and avoid things that are bad.
Yeah, the evasion. Seeing that animation was like, oh, that's super fun.
Yeah, right. That's exactly it. The running animation, I actually stole it from Sonic CD.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You started with like the foot positions and then sort of did a trace over.
Yeah, absolutely. So for me, I wanted to use the theme 8 as the theme because it's the 8th year, right? And 8 looks a little bit like an infinity symbol. So it's like, what is everything I know that uses the infinity symbol?
I love when this game starts getting really fast.
Sonic's feet. From Sonic CD, and also a character called the Dahaka from Prince of Persia, Warrior Within. He is a guardian of the timeline, and his head looks a lot like an infinity symbol. So I decided that the game would be the Dahaka chasing the prince to try and, fix the timeline or whatever it is he does.
So it's an infinity. It's an infinite runner with a character who looks like an infinity sign on top of an infinity sign.
That's pretty much sums it up, yeah. And I'm pretty happy with the way it sort of came together. It's a little bit fast sometimes. Like there's only 4 speeds. There's slowish, really slow, pretty fast, and really, really, really too fast. Like if you go into a boost ring and boost as well, then it moves 4 pixels every time. So it's 1, 2, 3, or 4 pixels, and it goes really, really fast. So I'm quite happy with sort of the way the floor ended up working because with the scrolling, the horizontal scrolling in Octo, you can only do the super chip, I should say. Horizontal scrolling can only do 4 pixels at a time. And that would have meant that it was stuck at that speed all the time. So moving to the other floor system,
or multiples of that, which could...
Yes, yeah. So if you're just one level of boost, that's 4 pixels per frame. And that's already pretty fast.
Mm-hmm.
And
that was right on the wire.
I really like how, as a sort of a consequence of the way that your level floor logic works, the way that sometimes the orbs will just spawn in and kind of fall into place.
Yes. They kind of slide in. Apparently, it really bothers my other half whenever he sees it. It's like, oh, that feels weird. But I just kind of got used to it, I guess. They just
I
kind
think
of
it looks
slide
fancy.
across.
Yeah, it's like something extra that you expect would be difficult to do, like it's purposely done in Octo. So it's cool.
This game does actually use one of the quirks, which is to no sprite wrapping.
Mhm.
And I use that quite a bit to sort of smooth things out a little bit, because it's actually really quite hard to limit your sprites to the edge of the screen.
Yeah, in combination with scrolling, it can get a little bit fiddly. It's easier when you're doing something tile-based.
Absolutely.
Are there any secrets here for me to find?
I'm afraid not. No, you've. There is one secret. It is possible to fall through the floor and wrap around the level about 2 or 3 times, like Noob Saibot out of Mortal Kombat. But I haven't quite figured out why or how yet. So if you
Is it
find
like hitting
out,
a slope really fast? Or just...
Speedrunners, let us know what you figure out.
have you done butt slams yet, John? There you go. Like if you hold down while doing it, you just slam down as quickly as you can, and
That's a
it
good-
seems to be like that seems to be a factor, like trying to combine that. But yeah, otherwise that's sort of it at the moment. I just it's just the fun little animations and the backwards text.
Butt Slam is a nice, just in general, very nice feature in Infinite Runners, because I feel like inevitably there's just that moment where you jumped and it came too fast for you to even judge where it was headed.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah, it was a direct response to like, oh, how how can you ever react to it? You know. But yeah, I really like just how mad fast it's able to get, because I've been trying to really explore like animations in Octo and Chip 8 over the past, I'm going to say 3 years.
Yeah, I remember it was last
starting
year
with
you
that.
did this Star Wars one.
Yeah, I like with the yeah, just trying to figure out what can I do, and then I think so that was Duel of the Fates a couple of years ago, and last year it was Angle of Death, which was also very unfinished, and just exploring like the character animations in that, and you can do some pretty cool stuff, I think. But yes, that is Akahad.
Akahad. All
I
right.
really like the
Very
second,
well done.
the second color, gray, for the items being kind of shot off too. Very nice and visually interesting, while being very clearly not like an element you need to worry about at that point.
Our next game is going to be Frog by Tom R.
Ooh, Frog.
Tom R is one of our most prolific contributors.
Looks like you pressed F for Frog.
So this is actually taking advantage of a new capability that ExoChip got this year. So there was a new instruction added that makes it possible to control the pitch at which audio sound effects are played. And so this is just using a fixed pattern and then altering the pitch in order to get this very evocative fly buzzing around noise.
That's great. Could you do panning too, like left and right? I'm not sure if you could tell.
Currently, it's still monophonic. There's been some discussion about support for stereo, but I don't think that we're going to do that in the near future.
Sure. Probably fairly far off from the actual hardware capabilities at that point.
Yeah, and just as sort of a technical note, it's basically taking the Y position of the fly as it's wandering around in spirals, and using that to determine what the actual pitch is at any given moment.
Neat.
Can you suck it? Can you tongue that fly?
Nope.
No, that was sadly a not yet implemented feature. There were a bunch of people asking for it, and Tom just didn't have time.
There's a lot of anticipation, though. It feels like.
Yeah, I know.
It's kind of like the DVD menu screensaver where I'm kind of looking for it to hit the corner here.
Yeah, it'd be nice if it could eventually land and quiet down a bit, and then pop up again.
Like a After Dark screensaver almost.
Yeah.
Little toaster. All right, I'm calling on this one. that noise is just gonna ring. All right, our next one is Exo Tracker.
Yeah, so this is a somewhat more elaborate demonstration of what you can do with this one more audio instruction. I'll just let this play for a little bit.
I love this turn intro. Very nice font.
Yeah, so this was written by the guy who helped design and implement this new audio instruction, and this is kind of a tour de force of what's possible in terms of audio now. And it's my understanding that he's actually working on a external tool that's a proper tracker program based on these capabilities. So in the near future, maybe by next year, it'll be a lot easier to add sophisticated music to Exochip games.
That's great. That's really exciting.
I think the track 2 in this is a real banger.
I think. Oh yeah, that's what we were listening to.
Yeah.
So
there's only 2. Okay.
Compared to the for an outdoor game that has no audio, how much space would the tracking information will this add significantly to the file size?
It's not actually that bad. For this particular program is about 17 kilobytes.
Whoa.
Oh, wow.
And that's out of a maximum of a little bit less than 64K that you can use. So you can have 2 pretty sophisticated long songs, all this UI, different visualization modes.
There's quite a bit.
Yeah.
Arguably, it might actually make having music in your games more efficient. At least the changes to pitch, the pitch operator that now exists, because you can reuse the same sample for different pitches, right?
Right.
And
or
previously, go ahead.
Yeah, or you can use the same number of samples and use them to make it possible to emulate doing chords, or use them to produce different kind of timbres and characters to sound, instead of just having to pre-generate a different buffer for an approximation of every single pitch that you want to play.
Man, it makes me... So when that tracker is finished, for the next Octo Jam, it feels like maybe the jam should also include purely for musicians, if they want to submit audio and other people maybe could use them. That could be really fun to just get other people interested in doing stuff.
That would be really cool, for sure. And this page has a lot of detail on it includes a version of the program that's just stripped down to just the player. So right now, if you wanted to, you could use that as a basis of starting to experiment with what this audio engine can handle.
This tracker view is really neat.
Yeah, it's visually very interesting.
Yeah, it's basically drawing the audio pattern that's getting pumped out on every frame, and then using the scroll instructions in order to just kind of straightforwardly get you this nice animated effect.
Very cool.
All right.
Though I will say the banana fox made me think of the horrible banana birds from Donkey Kong, so that's troublesome.
All right. What do you want to do next? Let's see.
Computer, play Octo.
We can do Computer Simulator.
Computer Simulator. This is another one of Tom's submissions. And I will note that at 102 bytes, this is actually the smallest submission that we had this year.
A petite Chip 8 project.
It's just uncanny. Thinking machines, supercomputers.
Whoa.
So fun fact, part of the reason that this is so small is because the pattern that's being used for the sound effects is also reused for drawing the dots for the computer display.
Well, all right. Exactly.
Oh, bug fixes.
Exactly, Sissel. My thoughts exactly. Okay. Is there anything else to this?
No, it's just an audio-visual demo. We had a number of submissions this year that are just kind of a tech demo or a neat thing. And I think that that's fun, especially given that quite a few of these were like an experiment that somebody just put together over the course of an afternoon to play with a new feature or learn something or just try a weird idea that they had.
It feels very much like exploring animation spaces, which is awesome to see. It reminds me of trying out stuff in After Effects and just seeing what's possible with different filters and effects. And it's really cool to see people playing around with a pioneering space essentially for stuff that's totally new to them in it.
I think that it speaks to the fact that the tools make it convenient to try stuff and to share stuff, which makes me really happy.
You've done a fantastic job on the usability of it already across the board.
All right. Oh, something else. That was Computer Simulator by Tamar. Everdread, you are slapping that talk button, by the way.
Have I?
It's very loud, yeah. Just so you know.
I moved my mic closer, but it's also closer to the button.
Closer
So
to the slap.
this loud keyboard, I'm sure, is like super. Let me try to recondition. Probably not much difference.
It's not that bad. Let's do a system log-off game. Let's do Elemental.
Elemental?
I think it's Elemental.
Yeah.
So this was a game that is inspired by the Grow series of Flash games.
Nice. That's fantastic.
Yeah. So in those games, it would always be sort of about figuring out a sequence of options that you use in order to make an animation play out or make something important happen. In this case, you're choosing elements and trying to create a world. And if you do them in the right order, then you get the most interesting ending. But there are a number of different valid solutions. That's my favorite, personally.
Yeah, I think that's a good end. Oh, that's dirt. I keep on thinking it's dice, like the elemental of dice. That's like the most
Fire,
powerful.
water, air, and dice.
Yeah, you just need luck.
That definitely looks like a planet to me.
That looks
Yeah.
good.
I think I won.
I think the one thing that might have enhanced this a little bit would be if there was like, I don't know, some kind of like a screen that showed you which of the endings you discovered.
Yeah.
Or some, like how some games will. Oh, I don't think I've seen that one before.
It says E out of 6, and it'd be really nice if it said and like E1 out of 6 or 2 out of 6 at least, so like you knew
Yeah.
which specific one.
Is that the keypad? Like, is it saying push E or the number 6 on the Octo keypad?
I think it's ending out of 6, but
Is there 6 possible combinations? I think there'd be
Well,
more.
there's-
4 times 3 times 2 times 1.
Yeah. Maybe that's a instruction, like a key
maybe
instruction.
it's just a play
Just to
again.
reset.
Because I suspect that there's slightly more to this game in at least one of the endings. Because it says it's an XO chip game. But
Well,
there's no sound and there's no extra colors, and it's
I think that was just down to kind of time constraints that System L had this year.
maybe.
The ROM is a little over 6 kilobytes, so it is using exochip
Right.
capabilities for extended RAM, just for the graphics. You can easily see how a game like this could add up pretty quickly,
Well, I suppose
especially
so.
with
Yeah.
that really fancy
Alright.
title screen.
All right, that was Elemental by System L. System log off. Let me type that into my we did it list.
I'm also keeping a checklist,
Sick.
by the way, so I will warn you if we're going to miss anything.
Let's look at the chip out calculator here. Okay.
Yeah, this is one that is definitely going to require some
Oh.
reading in order to use.
RPN, that's sick.
Yeah.
Because a little bit of a trial by fire. The HP48, the hardware for Superchip, also reverse Polish notation. And I knew all about it, except I didn't really think about it very much as I should have. I woke up in the middle of the night having finally figured out, that's how I get games to run on it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a little bit, takes a bit to get. So it's in hex as well.
Yes, it's in hexadecimal, probably for ease of display, and it's reverse Polish notation. So you've got a 4-element stack, It has kind of an interesting range of mathematical functions that it lets you use, and those aren't all just like lookup table based. One of the things that the source code in this specifically calls out is that all of the math routines are kind of factored out into their own section, so that in principle you could reuse them for a game that needed them. What I will, so this program runs on stock chip 8. It doesn't use any extensions. But what's a little bit ironic is that I don't believe that this program would actually work properly on an HP calculator, because it makes use of the jump 0 instruction, which Masty has discovered is extremely bugged in the original S-chip interpreter that ran on that calculator.
Very jump, not so much 0.
Yeah. But I mean, if you're on an HP 48, you have a calculator to begin with. So
Well, yes, I suppose you probably wouldn't need it, would you?
And if you have a Cosmac VIP, this is pretty fantastic.
Yeah.
I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm just pressing buttons.
You're hexed.
Right, so the control side, it coincides with... I'll need to read the instructions, actually.
Yeah, I think that it uses the number pad as numbers, and then
Like
some of the other keys for...
maybe it, like you jump into like a command mode by pushing one of the non buttons, maybe. Oh no, maybe you have to fill out the whole row. I'm sure it explains quite clearly if I just read it.
This is kind of an example of an interesting program that won't play very well on a stream, unfortunately.
Yeah, there is instructions here. They appear to be accurate instructions, but
Can you crash the program by adding 1 point beyond the 4 values?
It just goes to 0. I think it wraps around.
Oh, okay. I want to hear the buzzer.
Oh, I was going to say, it's already got 1 up on Super Chip then.
All right, we're going to move on. This is pretty cool, though. That was Chip A calculator. Let's see. What do you want to do next, IJ?
Let's look at the cool 3D spinning Octo.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, too.
That sounds cool.
Oh.
Whoa! It's a hot dog octopus.
Yep.
So is this is rendered out and played as an animation, or?
That's it. Yeah, so this is strictly pre-rendered. It's an ExoChip program. You can see because it's using the 4-color mode. I did a little bit of back-of-the-napkin math, and if you wanted to make a longer animation in this style, where like all the program does is animate, you could have up to 32 full-screen frames with this kind of approach. And if you used a smaller region of the screen, then you could obviously make that a lot bigger. I'm kind of curious to see if at some point somebody will try to put some data compression in and make the world's first FMV ExoChip game.
Oh man,
It'll probably have a pretty short runtime though.
You'd have to be so clever about like frame usage and timing.
But I think this is really cute. It's an interesting application of Octo that I hadn't really thought about before.
All right.
Just as an animation tool.
That is cool 3D spinning Octo by System L.
And it is clearly all 4 of those things.
Yep.
That's true.
Let's do a back-to-back System L submission here, because I'm seeing Winamp, Octoamp here.
Yeah, this is another one of our audio-based programs. Although the audio is a little bit less impressive than ExoTracker.
Very good.
I know that song.
In a way, it kind of helps demonstrate what it is that the new operator offers, because you'll hear one of these notes sounds not particularly fuzzy.
Mm-hmm.
And that by combining the fact that we can get a clear sample and the pitch operator, it allows us to get much cleaner audio out of the interpreter now.
Exactly, and it makes some of these interactions, like being able to pitch bend, much simpler to program than they would have been otherwise. Not to mention, they sound a lot better than they would have.
I'm not sure what you did there, John.
I went way too low. I think it wrapped around. All right, that's cool. I'm a sucker for Winamp stuff.
Yeah, I think that this does a really fantastic job of just visually evoking the Winamp UI.
Still using it.
I'm not.
It's kind of startling, like just how good it looks for the number of pixels that are available.
Yeah. All right, that's Octo Jam by SystemL. Let's do. You want to do Chiplorium? I forget which one you wanted to say for last.
The one that I want to save for last is
Automa?
Octoma.
Oh yeah, okay. Do Chiplorium here.
Chipolarium.
Oh, I love
So this is a
Chipolarium.
game by Tobias, who's been a frequent contributor. I believe that this is a port of an existing puzzle game.
All right,
I
let's see.
think Chipolarium is how the Romans would call Chipotle. Solve the puzzle, John.
I'm trying to play and read the instructions at the exact same time.
Yeah, so the basic idea is that it's kind of like The Witness mixed with Lights Out, which is a description that maybe only game devs would really understand. So you draw a line, and you can visit squares once, and the line will toggle the squares that you land on. And what you're trying to do is make it so that every horizontal line of the puzzle ends up all the same color. So for many of these puzzles, there's more than one way to do it, but as the puzzles get more difficult, it becomes increasingly constrained.
I don't think I'm gonna be able to figure this out on stream.
You can just go off the edge.
Oh,
It's actually pretty important for solving the majority of things.
Are you trying to turn the black ones into white, so you want to draw over, go right one more, and then go down the black, then up the other black?
Yeah, you can solve it either way. I think that the shortest way is for this puzzle is you just draw over the two blacks.
I think it's the single width of the line makes it actually kind of hard to immediately ascertain that you're flipping them.
You kind of need to try it.
Yeah.
And you'll once you kind of apply a solution after drawing the line, it'll probably become a little bit more clear what's going on.
Yeah, I think I think I have a pretty strong grasp of it just looking at it. But it definitely it feels like John maybe is not getting that.
the mechanic.
Right.
yeah, I'm definitely not getting the mechanic now.
So go down. There you
Yeah.
go.
See, so that isn't quite the solution. You need to blank out both lines.
And you can go down the edge, so you don't need to. Yeah, once you do it, that first time is really
Okay,
important.
it's really unintuitive.
Yeah, I feel like a tutorial almost of like showing it going by itself once for like an intro animation.
Yeah,
would
for
be
sure.
really helpful.
That would have.
Yeah, showing an intro, something in game rather than just a written description would probably help. And I think another thing that is a little bit unclear until I started really playing around with it is the fact that it's like per row you need to make everything uniform. For the puzzles that we've seen so far, that isn't really an important constraint, but for some of the other ones it does start to matter. And that is a valid solution, John, but you made that a lot more complicated than it needed to be.
I think that was the most complicated you could get for the number of like different motions for each one. But this is great. So this is, you said this was a port, because this is just excellent.
Yeah, it's really good. It has 99 levels.
Oh my god.
Wow.
Yeah.
Is
So
it just
this
like
could definitely.
imported, or did they do it all by hand?
I believe that this is like the level set from the existing version of the game that was ported.
So to be, how does this work?
Yeah, this one I'm not sure. I have no clue how.
So the
I need to
important
read the instructions.
in order to solve this puzzle, you need to understand that you don't have to have every row be the same. Within each row, it has to be the same.
Oh, that was not tutorialized.
Yeah, that I had to play with that for a while in order to really like understand what. Yeah, you're on the right track, John.
So just a big old W going outside.
Gotta go outside.
Kinda.
Kind of like I like failing in this game because you get a cool pattern.
Yeah, it's visually
You do.
very rewarding.
Well, and like it's. John was complaining earlier about how it was a little bit unintuitive, but I think that this UI reads very, very clearly once you understand the mechanics of the puzzle.
Yeah, the first time you do it, and you see the first time I saw the animation of it going backwards and things flipping over, super immediately understandable. But
Mhm.
until that point, like seeing that happen automatically once would, I think, be really helpful. But I think
There you go.
For sure.
That was valid. Okay.
Yeah.
off the edges, and that's fine. It's really good. Like this is very much a clearly designed as a port. It's clearly like very well done. I actually just fired up The Witness the other day, and I was thinking about, I'd like something like The Witness that I don't actually remember at all, because like even 5 years later, you sort of remember most of like what to do. And this is really cool to see.
This is a good illustration of how where you start the line is often important.
Yeah.
Sometimes it would be kind of nice if there was a key to just like retract your whole line and start over.
A full clear.
That is true. I could absolutely see that as being a boon.
I think it'd be really satisfying to see the auto solve for this too, like seeing it wiggle out on like a flip over.
Oh god, yeah, that would be amazing. I would love to watch a speed run of this game.
Yeah,
that would be pretty good.
Maybe we get that computer AI, the supercomputer we saw earlier, that could automatically for us.
Yeah, so as for just general technical details, this game is 3,579 bytes. That means that it is leaving 2 free to fit into what you're allowed with S-chip. And this actually does include an HP48 header block. So if you...
All right.
So the way that works is that a lot of games that were published on the HP48 have a jump instruction as their first opcode, and then they have in ASCII text like a short string to indicate the name of the game or the author or whatever. And because of the way that the HP48's operating system worked, you would see that on the home screen when you're selecting the game to play.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I really, really like this game. This is as I've been saying, it's very much an excellent demake. This is a very good.
I think this is a good example of an S-chip game that, like, if I had this on my calculator, I would definitely play this all the time.
Yeah, this is the game that everybody would want. Like, they'd ask the kid who had it to install for them before Mario, the crummy Mario you could get. This is
the Blockadude of S-chip, I think.
I'm just I'm checking out the write up that Tobias did for it, because I'm interested if he's using the S-chip, but the original interpreter as well, or if he's using one of my compatibility ones.
I think that he has multiple builds.
Ooh.
I
could sit here and play this all day.
Yeah, there's 100 levels. I'm probably going to go and play through this later.
This is a cool mechanic. Definitely going to steal this. It's a cool minigame mechanic.
It really just needs a little bit more guidance and explanation up front. But like once you get the idea, it's really fun and addictive.
Yeah, I think honestly, a single like showing one of these automatically going off and it spells Octo or it says hi or hello or something, I think that would give you a really nice intro of like, this is the action that I can perform when it goes off, and this is what it looks like, and here's me doing it right after. I think that's as much tutorialization you would probably need, other than or only needing horizontal lines specific. That should probably also be demonstrated, like either right before the puzzle that has to happen, or in the beginning. But that's probably that's the one other element that I feel like you could get stuck on pretty easily without information inside the game.
Yep.
Even on the first puzzle that happens with, just like some sort of text prompt would probably be the easiest way of like remember lines or some sort of like outside visual. But excellent work. This is a really strong. Obviously, the game intrinsically is very, very good, but a very, very solid demake, very clean representation of the game in this space. Great work with it.
Yeah.
Agreed.
I'm gonna beat this level and then we're gonna call it for this game.
Gonna beat it like that, John. You got to use that bottom to your advantage and come out the top.
Yeah.
All about tops and bottoms in this game.
I'm not really using my brain here. I got streamer brain going on, so.
Oh, no,
I was going to say, it's hard when you're on stream.
We're
And
not
incredibly
technically on
easy when
stream,
you're
yeah.
watching the stream.
It's true.
Yeah, you were really, really close earlier, John.
Oh, that solution has long since left my brain.
Mhm.
So the bottom is a huge advantage, as you can constantly go in and out of the bottom as much as you need. So the top.
Oh no.
It's even when you know you got it wrong, it's satisfying just to press solve and
Yeah.
see it kind of unravel.
Yeah, it's visually very satisfying. I'd love to see the autocompletes.
Do you want to know how I would solve it, John?
Yeah, sure.
If you go back to where you began this line, but go up instead and go all the way around the outside of the level, then just snake in and follow the outside. Don't do that.
Mhm.
Snake in and follow the shape. I do apologize if you track back just to the left edge there, and then go in and then stay in, going to the right. Don't go down yet. Get that cube yet. Then go down right. There you go.
Okay. Again, this is Tobias did an amazing job here. This is excellent. Good job.
Once again, we see how strong these demakes are when you have the absolute minimum sort of visual clarity you can get of just two colors. Some games, just pure design games, incredible in that space, and you can do just an insane job with it.
It's always like one of the best things you can say about one of these games is that it transcends being a chip 8 game and is a game that just on its own right is extremely fun and playable.
Yeah, like the pureness of the game design, of the core aspect. And those are the games that really do well. Chip 8 allows that to really be everything.
I'm interested in Elite International Golf.
Yeah, that visual is very PlayStation cover art.
It's very Virtual Boy looking. This looks like was it Tan's game from like the first Octo Jam or one of the very first Turnaround?
It's a little bit like Turnover 77, but it's also a little bit more like golf.
Ooh.
So it's kind of like a putt-putt golf kind of experience. You choose an angle, choose a strength. It can be a little bit frustrating that you're restricted to just 8 angles, which, given the layout of the course, can make it kind of easy to get horrendously stuck.
Yeah, you really have to know your pressure buttons and get your positioning like spot on. It looks like this looks quite tricky.
Yeah, I was able to beat this in its entirety a few times, but there are also times when I would just get into a spot where it seemed basically impossible to recover, and it wasn't really clear until I struggled for a while that was the case.
For every power, like there's no way for me to actually end up on top. So there's no like control or fine control over like where you end up, it feels like.
I think in general the controls are kind of coarse.
Ooh. Just banging its head.
So close, John. There you go.
Yay.
I win the hole.
Congratulates.
How many holes are there?
That seems like that's
Just
it.
one.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. That makes sense. One hole.
One entire hole.
Yeah, that's all you need, really.
All right, that was Elite International Golf Hyper Turbo.
Can I quickly ask? Do you know? Is it VIP level technology that it's running on? Is it?
Yeah, it's a chip 8 game. It does make use of Jump Zero, so there are the aforementioned potential S chip issues, but it seems like that game would actually work on a VIP. I did some experimentation while that build is running at 100 cycles per frame. It's still playable at 10 or 15.
Yeah, because it has that sort of, you make your decision and then you watch it play out mechanic
Exactly.
that seems to work so well.
Yeah. All right. So next game we're gonna play is Alien Invasion.
Yeah, so probably the first thing that you will notice about this is that it looks a little different from a lot of the other games. Aside from just the fact that it's on a TV. So this bends the rules a little bit. Basically, the way that color works in OctoChip, you can have four colors by combining together two graphics planes that are kind of stacked on top of each other, and where the colors overlap from one another, you get an additional color. And in the notes for the ExoChip spec, I observed that the way that the instruction coding works, you could in principle have 4 color planes and then up to 16 colors. So what Tremendous did here was write his own emulator and add 2 more graphics planes. If you take the same program and you run it in Octo, it does still work. You just don't see quite as many colors.
Right.
But
You died.
there are also some kind of non-obvious technical things going on here. This is running in this emulator at about 200,000 cycles per frame, which is a lot more than any other game. And what it's doing to take up that much time is it's actually doing software rendering for all of this stuff.
Oh wow.
It has
was
an
gonna say.
internal buffer that it's rendering sprites to, and then it flips that buffer to the actual ExoChip display.
Right.
The purpose of this is to make it. He wanted to have some additional capabilities for compositing and working with sprites, and I mean it does work.
How slow would this run on actual hardware then? If
Well, ExoChip isn't really based
that's true, yeah.
on real physical hardware, but I guess a way to put it would be that this is running at a clock speed that's about 10,000 times as fast as the HP48 ran.
So it would take 10,000 HP 48s all seamlessly linked together.
Imagine that.
That's definitely how you
Per
do
frame. Yeah.
it. You're right. So,
Because
So
my
it's
game
kind of
Akahad
a-
runs at 1,000, and this is
Mhm.
200,000.
correct.
Woof.
I
can
mean,
believe it, though.
as you can see, it's about 200 times as much graphics.
Yes.
So this is kind of like a monument to the power of brute force, I guess.
I would love to see, I don't know, I would love to see Octo support like this many colors officially. Just to like get that cool like ease of access and ease of writing programming for it. And
It's
also
certainly a possibility.
What are
This is
the cool colors? Magenta. Just having support for the cool
Just
colors.
more magenta.
Yeah, just more magenta
Mhm.
everywhere.
Magenta, cyan,
Yeah.
magenta, cyan.
Double magenta.
Mm-hmm.
And there's blacks. I think
That's right.
from a design perspective, you see the strength of the field spanning laser beam bullets, being able to kill everything instantly. Feels like it might be a little bit better to have at the very least, if they're still going to go across the entire screen, and taking like a few frames for it to destroy an enemy before it hits the one behind it, having it clear everything, it seems really strong.
I just realized that if you hold the button down, that's when you die. Like if you don't hold the button down, you have a shield, which is like a cool game design decision, I think.
Can you ever die if you're using the shield?
Like, so you see how when I hit an enemy, the red bar starts filling up as if I were firing?
Oh, that's your overheat.
Yeah. That's really neat, I think.
There's a pretty extensive write-up available for this game, and if you're interested in the technical details, I would encourage reading that. It basically sounded like the gameplay was kind of the pushed down to the last minute, and most of the effort was focused on sort of the technical side of just making this possible.
It's a tricky hole to find yourself in when you focus on the graphics, and this is it in Chip A. You're gonna need an underground CIA super data center to be able to compute this on the actual hardware.
Mm-hmm.
I want to see it done.
All right.
That's really interesting. Because if you think about, because the graphics for Chip A are exclusive all, right?
Yep.
And that means that rendering like green over red over gray actually becomes pretty complicated to do if they can combine together in all sorts of strange ways.
Well, yeah, normally in ExoChip, sort of an element of how you design your palettes is the way that you expect to want to layer things together. Like you could decide to give up a color in order to make the combined color match one of the planes.
That's
and
exactly what I do.
Yeah, and that's a way to achieve opacity.
Yeah, I wonder how it works with this one. I'll have to dig into this. This is fascinating. That's really neat.
That shield is OP, John.
I don't know, I'm having a good time.
It feels good to win.
What this game needs is a pumping chiptune soundtrack.
It does. Yeah.
Heck, like if
Definitely
there's some way to make it like run a tracker, like it's a separate thing, it's just a calls it up sort of thing, and have like a database of songs. I really like that idea of like people making songs that anybody can use for their games, and then it becomes sort of like a challenge to see who can make the most fitting use of a song almost. It seems like it could be really fun.
Who can fit it in their ROM the best?
I feel like there's so many great chiptunes, keygen chiptunes that could work for this.
Oh, somebody make a song that sounds good that I can fit in 160 bytes.
I like that, like having a bounty for specific needs of space. Like, what's the most interesting song you can make in the smallest file size? That's a lot.
I can feel the frame rate fluctuating whenever there's a lot of enemies on screen.
Maybe should have bumped it up to 300,000.
Yeah.
But it's like the speed is fluctuating. Oh, I died there without my shield being full.
I don't think you're pretty overheated.
Yeah, I was pretty overheated. All right. That was Alien Invasion. Very good. Let's do Super Octagon. Let's just start going down the list.
Sure. This was my entry this year. Super Octagon is obviously a demake of Super Square from an earlier Octo Jam.
But better, because there's more sides.
Well, I mean, it has more sides and more angles.
That's great. Both.
That's
of those
more
are
of
great.
everything, yeah. Whoa, okay. I've played my fair share of Super Octagon. Or Super Hexagon, rather.
I played
Sounds like
Super
fun.
Hexagon for 5 minutes, and I was like, I can't do this.
It's a very intimidating game in the later stages.
It does. It does lose something by not having Super Hexagon's amazing pumping soundtrack, but I do feel like the gameplay for this is pretty enjoyable.
Oh yeah,
it came through pretty well. This is an S-chip game, so I was constrained on the amount of space that I had to fit all my graphics and the wave patterns into. And I ended up with only 2 bytes of RAM left when I put this all together. So I took that as a sign that it was done. The basic technique that this uses for rendering the display is a little bit interesting. Basically, every segment of the octagon is made up of 8 possible positions, and for each one of those, I have a pre-rendered sprite. And every one of those sprites that I might want to render fits in a 16 by 16 box. So I can draw every layer of the octagon with just 8 sprite draws of the appropriate pre-canned sprite. And the Chip 8 automatic pixel perfect collision does exactly what I need in terms of detecting when you've hit the side.
Mm.
The wraparound looks pretty brutal.
There's a fun, risky method of doing that where you can kind of slip in through the edges if you're
It looks
fast
hard.
enough.
It looks.
I did it
very
once.
tricky.
Yeah.
Like there's like a 1 pixel gap. You have to be very precise. How many? I wonder how long each frame is essentially being displayed. How much time you have to make that?
Every frame in this game runs at about 15 FPS.
Okay.
I found that was the best balance because I have a fixed number of segments that I can animate. So I can't just make this arbitrarily smooth. The smoother the animation is, the more RAM it takes. So I have
I was
to
going to
find
say,
a balance that feels good to play, and it processes the game input about twice as fast as it updates the screen to make it a little bit more responsive.
those 16 by 16 sprites are going to eat through the RAM.
Mm-hmm. Right. I made a quick and dirty version of this, and then I wanted to add more variety to the patterns that it draws. It basically has 2 tables of patterns, and it randomly swaps back and forth between which table it's referencing. So you always get kind of coherent sets of waves, but the actual progression of waves is a little bit different every time. And fitting in that second set of waves just had to crunch my code a bit, and I have no space left.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I'm noticing the cursor here flashes sometimes. Why is that?
That's because of when it is drawn relative to the end of the frame. It was kind of an accidental property, but I sort of liked it, and I felt it helped draw the player's focus to that game element.
Yeah, it feels like a good sort of visual cue for you,
It's
especially
neat.
when it gets very tight.
Yeah, definitely. It feels. And it reminds me of like the NES's sprite limitations, or all of the retro consoles' sprite limitations.
Gotta have some flicker.
Okay, level 11. I'm good with that. Proud of that. All right, that was Super Octagon by the one and only Internet Janitor. And some
There
water.
cannot be a second.
I want to see this. I want to see Sand by Tomar.
Oh, I love sand.
Or Sank.
This is the 3rd entry by Tom.
Is it Worm?
Yeah, this is one of the state games submitted this year, but it has kind of an interesting twist, if you will, in that the worm is twisty.
That is actually really cool.
That's neat.
It's a
So
very
do you
smooth.
only die by wrapping into yourself then?
Yeah, Tom started with a game that was written by Scavalis many years ago that was called Mr. Worm Eats Waffles. And Tom added this wiggliness mechanic and some theming. It's sort of a slantwise allusion to a popular film that just came out called Dunk. You may have seen it.
Oh, nice. I've heard good things about it.
Yeah, I love Dunkirk. It's a great film.
Yeah.
I like the bit with the worm. I live on the south coast of England, and so like the story of Dunk is very close to our hearts. And,
everybody knows about the worms of Dunkirk.
Yeah.
Kind of a non-conventional warfare.
Don't give the people who now own the Dune franchise any more ideas.
Yeah, so the way that this worm is rendered so smoothly is
Dang.
that basically there's a table of pre-XOR'd little worm pieces that can be drawn ahead of the worm every time. And because they anticipate the bits of the worm that are already drawn, you're always sort of adding on to and slicing off of what's already drawn. And you only have to redraw the very leading edge of the worm and its tail.
That's very clever.
Man,
That's sort of
a
why
lot of
you get
submissions-
that.
Sorry.
But yeah, I was just saying, like, that's sort of why you get that, like, a bite out of the end of the tail as a natural consequence of this method of erasing.
And then I guess that automatically just works with the pixel perfect precision, just because the
Mhm.
draw. That's great.
Yep. And the dunes are drawn on a separate graphics plane, so it's really easy to just ignore collision with those.
Yeah, I was gonna say a lot of entries this year are really, really solid gameplay wise. They usually always are, but it feels like we have a lot of them this year.
Mhm.
Starting to get scary good at Chip 8.
Well, I mean, we have been doing this for 8 years.
God.
Oh, that worm's getting big. It's always tricky. The wraparound is pretty disorienting for worm games, I feel like, or snakes. That can really screw you up.
It's kind
You
of the
do
most
rather-
natural way to do it because of how
Hmm.
how graphics wrap around on Octo.
But I as soon as I started playing this game, I was like, and just aimed my worm upwards and slightly to the right, and just let it go, and that made everything a bit less to the right. If you can,
That's two. There.
yeah, there you go.
Yeah, I think if there was a
Just
little
leave it at
bit of a desert bus-esque randomness to it, you could probably prevent the user from coasting like this. Or another option would be, conceivably, you could have something that was dangerous to the worm that you wanted to try
You
to
should have
not hit.
what I would imagine is settlement building. Essentially,
Oh,
like maybe you could slowly take them down, but if you go head on into a settlement, they kill you.
Oh yeah.
So just that popping up randomly, then more and more, if you're not actively going after them, would be a nice sort of obstacle to deal with.
yeah, the Fremen start to get uppity. Yeah, they no longer fear the Shai Hulud.
I just read Dune, the novel, recently, like a month ago, and was like, kind of shocked at how much Half-Life completely references and borrows from Dune
Very
aggressively.
inspirational.
But yeah.
Tremors too.
Speaking of After Dark screensavers, this would be cool. I'd run this.
Eventually, the worm gets too long, though.
I wonder how long it would take for the worm to get too long.
So what can actually happen is eventually the little hut will be drawn right in the gap that
Oh,
you can see
no.
that forms between it, and you'll just perfectly just whoosh, right by the wall of it. It's quite pleasing when it happens, other than the realization that you now have to try and fix it.
That almost happened. There's 1 pixel.
Yeah, I think the game also has a circular buffer of positions, and so I'm not exactly sure how much of the screen would be filled when you wrap around 256 bytes, or if it has a cap built in.
Yeah,
I'd
I
have to
think
look at the source code.
you can. I believe you can actually win because when I was trying this, I speech marks won by virtue of the fact that it undrew my own worm's head because it wrapped around the buffer because the worm was too long.
Uh-huh.
Can you speed
And
this
I
up,
was like,
Sean? Can you increase the frames?
No, not easily. No.
Not easily.
you can. I think if you alt tab away from it, something happens to the delay register and it speeds up when you come back.
Yeah, that's sort of a consequence of the way that the new frame rate control stuff in the audio system works. I may do a little bit of a tweak to that, but basically, the audio system tries to keep the game running at a consistent frame rate, but in general, web browsers will throttle or pause JavaScript execution, so you end up with a sort of a dog chasing a rabbit around a tree.
I know what you mean. Yeah, I see what you mean.
Oh, you can always just pull the tab off, put it in the corner, leave it running for a while.
Well,
It's
that's what's
an
happening.
accidental idle game.
We're just gonna hear the audio from that tab every once in a while. All right, 3D VIP maze.
Yeah, so this is by Tremendous again, who made Alien Invasion, and last year he made 3D Viper Maze, which was an exochip extravaganza with music and animation. And this was basically an effort to try to take the maze exploration features of that game and crunch them down into something that would fit on a Cosmac VIP.
Was that a loading
And
screen? Holy crap! I thought I just didn't
that
know.
was level generation. So what this game does is it's just a random maze that you can walk around in first person,
That's
and
very impressive.
It's running at a realistic speed for Cosmac VIP, with a lot of cleverness put into making it render relatively fast and making everything fit in the available RAM. Ultimately, when all is said and done, this game has about 22 bytes free, and even that might actually be an overestimate, because it wouldn't surprise me if there were some working buffers aliased over that. So this is tight. And given that it's restricted to running at, basically, I think this is running at like 15 cycles per frame, it is extraordinarily playable for its platform and what it's doing.
That's great. That's really impressive.
Man, if you had just a little
that-
bit more RAM, you could make an RPG out of this.
Yeah, I was just gonna
Yeah.
say this is the virtual reality, the city sort of stuff. That, this is getting that direction.
If you showed this to somebody in 1977,
Yeah,
I think it would have absolutely blown their mind
they
that
dreamed
that you were doing this on this this dinky little kit computer with barely any RAM.
Oh, that's so cool.
And this is actually even more restrictive than a lot of ordinary Chip 8 games, because in order to get something to run on the VIP, you have to leave some extra RAM untouched because it's needed by the Chip 8 interpreter. So the whole thing here was, by my measurement, 3,194 bytes.
Is there
Really pushing the limit.
Is there something that you can pick up to create a new level, or is it?
No, there's basically no room for any gameplay
Okay.
aside from just it's a maze. You can walk around. But
I love that. I
since it
thought this was
generates-
the game for the longest time. I'm like, oh, what are the controls? What's going on?
Yeah, wow, this is maybe it's a
Mhm.
snake game.
Yeah, very slow snake.
Yeah, it's doing a recursive maze generation algorithm. So it is a different maze every time.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, I was thinking if there was just the single edition that would have been nice, is just randomly having a single object that could be a single color, or just a pixel. And when you get to that, it just generates a new one to essentially say you won that maze.
Yeah, it might be possible to squeeze something like that in. There is an extensive write-up for this game as well, and anybody who's interested in technical details of data compression on the Chip 8 platform, give it a read.
All right. That was a 3D VIP maze. Our dunk is going quite well.
Nice. Look at that hungry snake, hungry worm.
I'm gonna stop this because it's probably gonna annoy some people if if we showcase their game with that noise in the background. Oh wait, I can just mute the tab. Never mind.
Oh,
We're leaving it. All right, Chip 8 Snake is next.
So this is another example of a game that was sort of ported over, and it's also an example of a snake game. We love our snake games.
Perfect for the platform.
Yeah, so I think this is based on an example program for a fantasy console, and I think it comes out as just a really clean, nice-looking exochip game.
Yeah, very nice usage of tiles, so you know very discreetly where you can turn, and also it creates the snake body, the efficiency of the snake body there. I really like the eyes, that change of eye into a happy face when you get an apple is really nice. That's great polish.
Yeah.
And
As
it's
well
pretty
as polish
compact, too. This is only 627 bytes.
That's pretty good.
The source code is very neat and nice to read, so if anybody wants a an example to reference, give the source code for this one a read.
So this it looks like this does let you go into yourself in a complete like reversal, which you just did.
Well, I keep
Yeah.
doing it because I keep buffering 2 inputs,
Yeah.
and
You
Yeah,
gotta
there's
I was
no,
usually
gonna say,
it does not read my down input a lot.
it doesn't, forgive. Like if you were pushing down and backwards, it picks backwards into yourself.
Yep.
I was going to say
Usually
one
nice.
thing. Oh, go ahead, Everdred.
I was just saying, usually nice to prevent that for usability.
Yeah, absolutely. I was going to say one thing that can actually be sort of challenging.
I got 2
there's
fruits to
two,
spawn.
is when the little snake. One of them's
Ooh.
fake.
It's a phantom apple. Oh, we're gonna need a bug report on this.
The inedible apple. Ghost apple.
Not a soft lock, thankfully.
That's.
I mean, it's sort of a poetic statement about how pursuit of
the odds-
material wealth ultimately.
I was going to say the odds of it happening are very low, but at some point it could draw another apple on top of the existing one,
Yeah.
and then you wouldn't know where it was.
You wouldn't know where the invisible, non-existent apple was.
Yeah.
That needs to always be tracked.
Our worm is doing quite well. Okay.
Yeah.
Tapeworm. Let's keep the snake
We're
train.
in the worm
rolling.
block. Are these all worms?
That's a big intro worm. That's a big starting worm.
Is that like a bone worm?
So this is a snake game with a twist that I don't think I've actually seen before, which is that you just reverse the kind of lifespan of the worm. It gets shorter and shorter, and you need to keep eating.
Oh, okay. But you end up in a situation like this where it's like, well, I just
Yep.
got, you get effed by RNG
Distance. Yeah.
I think that this game does allow you to wrap around, though. So I think in that situation,
Oh.
if you had, if you'd toroided your way around, you might have been able to save that one.
That's cool. That's actually a lot of efficiency computation for trying to figure out the most efficient way to get to it from any spot. That's neat. That's a good use of wraparound to be a very discrete mechanic.
Try to get that input in. Could not time it.
Yeah. I feel like with Snake, the trickiest thing is the inputs and how smoothly you can feel like you can make these very tight, very fast sort of entries into specific spots.
Yeah, I feel like, especially when it's running at this frame rate, it's almost like playing Crypt of the Necrodancer, where you're trying to have your input read on the exact frame.
Yeah.
Whoa!
So
It is now going very fast.
I was going to say, so something's so with Chip 8, basically you have a few options for delaying the frame rate. If you don't want 60 FPS, you can effectively say how many frames you want it to delay for.
How many
Almost.
60th of a second?
Yeah, right.
Mhm.
And if you want to slow the game down, it is tempting to just say, okay, wait for 4 60ths of a second, and you'll get 4 times fewer frames. So you'll get 15 FPS. But then you're only potentially checking input every 15 FPS, and
Right.
like doing things like the 60 FPS animations that I've been doing. You realize, well, I only want to run the game at 30 FPS, but I need to make sure that I service this routine. I need to run this animator. I need to make sure I would handle the audio if I was doing music as well. I would need to kind of make sure every time I try to delay the frame rate, I go and play some more music. And it can be quite complicated to do all the little bits and bobs, especially related to input, and then make use of them. Because a lot of the time it's tempting to just have an if statement, like, are they pushing the right key? Okay, then they turn. But you're only checking that turning at one particular point in what could be 4 display frames.
Exactly. And usually the state of keys is sort of updated by the global system per frame. It's if you have a tight delay loop that's burning off excess time in order to control your frame rate, For action games, it is often a good idea to buffer, even just one input in that busy loop, and then you can service it as soon as you break out.
that got pretty
I really-
dicey.
I
I
really
did
like
that, for
this
example, in Super Neat Boy, which is kind of a case study platformer game. I did as an example last year.
Yeah, I really like the risk reward element here because with it going faster as you get longer, you can play it safe. But if you really want to try to get points quickly, really make a lot of risk for yourself. It's a neat
You're
concept.
literally taking damage to save time. One technical note that I would make on the implementation of this is that for the game over screen, this game displays numbers, and it does BCD decoding. That's binary coded decimal, where you break down a byte into digits. But it does it explicitly without using the BCD instruction. I think it's possible that the author forgot that existed. So you could actually make it a lot simpler if you look up that opcode and play around with it a little bit.
Yeah.
And this is the cool colors.
It is the cool colors.
Once it gets going that fast, it almost does not
Yeah.
check your input fast enough to actually be able to play past like 20.
Yeah. I think you really would need to be buffering that direction input in your wait loop.
All right, this is gonna be the last life for this game.
Yeah, sort of.
Fast run.
How did I even die there? Oh, I know. Like,
You went up. And you were-
I feel like I had room. I had like one tile of room, and I feel like the game overed me like a tile before I like even saw where I was.
I was going to say, like, it's the same problem that I sort of had. Like, you can go faster, but only by a factor of 2 each time.
Right.
Oh no, we've hit it.
Yeah.
You've got
So
to try and
will-
maneuver the worm.
Will it always repeat in the exact same spots then, even on wrap?
Will, yeah.
Oh no!
So
We got this. We can do this. It's like surgery. We can do it.
all right,
We
John.
do not.
I believe in you.
Oh, he got
That's
this. Oh, that next one though.
Oh,
I'm
it's on the
available
previous.
for surgeries and bar mitzvahs.
Oh,
I think this might lose here. No, it's just gonna be just enough. Just enough.
Yeah, you're good.
I think it
That'll
might
be
miss
good,
again.
that'll be
Oh
good.
no, it won't. All right.
It has to be touching the body.
Are we still
Yeah.
growing?
Yeah.
It's a healthy. I mean, I guess inevitably the only spaces open would be the between spaces.
I think this is the end game that we're coming in on here.
Are we gonna hit a kill screen?
gonna be
I
just
believe.
infinite
it's so
points.
satisfying.
Every harvester.
Oh,
just
look.
getting-
Oh,
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 oh
that's
no!
how we die.
you left spots behind.
126 is the kill screen.
There you go.
All right.
Possibly more because you might be able to get lucky with your final few.
I'm gonna throw that challenge out to the Octo community to beat this score of 126
World record.
world
Let's
record.
find out.
As far as we know, currently world record. What a happy worm.
All right. Super Pong.
Game gets faster.
Ooh.
This is
that's-
by Off Static,
Oh, huh.
and this is a plain vanilla chip 8 game.
Did I just win?
Maybe you may have
Oh,
you
nope.
may have cracked the code there. So I think this is a pretty fun variation on Pong.
You
I
can
haven't
see
seen quite this before. It's a little bit like
I feel like I should.
it's a little bit like playing Warlords, except you're playing all 4 players at the same time.
This is actually like it's neat, but I feel actively frustrated playing this.
it's hard. It feels like the amount of time you have for the vertical is so much less. So like you really have to be
Yeah.
tracking the vertical, the horizontal.
If this game had chosen to restrict the screen to like a square in the middle, it might feel a little bit more fair. But it also, I don't know, maybe it would make it too easy. I'm not quite sure.
if it gets faster than this, and so every 5 points it gets faster, it feels like this is a pretty tough start. I feel like you could probably reduce that difficulty down. That'd be like a modifier having the wider than it is, like start with a square and extends out. Could be like increasing difficulty too. But this seems like you're not tracking that. Yeah, there's no way you're going to get that if you were not actively tracking across a horizontal.
And the flashing makes it very, very difficult to track, like, reliably.
Can I go over
Makes
there
it a
yet?
little bit physically uncomfortable.
A little
It's
bit.
a difficult game.
All right, that's Super Pong by Off Static. Pretty neat. Kinda
So
real
is
sick.
that something that exists before, or is that a new creation? Just out of curiosity.
I think that's an original creation.
That's awesome.
All right, next game here is Safecracker.
Yeah, this is a fun puzzle game. I like this.
Classic.
Oh man. Okay.
It's actually a lot easier than it looks like when you're looking at that chart. Basically, the 1 to Z and 2 to X are like increment decrement the individual numbers.
Okay.
And then you press I think it's E to like confirm a choice, and it's like Mastermind. So you have to make it so that they're all different numbers to be allowed to make a choice. And then now you got 2 light colored squares. That means that you had 2 correct numbers, but in the wrong places. I know this is a little bit cerebral for a stream game sometimes. But I actually played this a couple times, and I think this is pretty fun. This is another one that I would probably...
You can't just
this
game one, John.
I know.
Yeah, so Safecracker is an exochip game, but it basically only uses that for color, and it isn't very speed sensitive either. So it would definitely be possible to make an S-chip compatible version of this game, and if I had that, I would definitely play it on my HP48.
So what a black square there means.
So you know 0, you know 9 is correct. You know 0 is in it. So 7, 1, or 2, one of those is wrong, and they're all in the wrong position.
Okay.
You have all the right numbers.
Yeah. Now you just got to permute.
Try 0, 7, 1. Oh.
Then probably.
So 1 is probably
a long way around for that one.
Yeah, the fact that this doesn't let you repeat numbers definitely makes it a little bit easier than a traditional Mastermind, which I don't mind.
I think there was some years ago there was a Mastermind submission as well, maybe.
Yep, there was a plain vanilla Chip 8 version.
7
I think
can't
in
be
that
right.
it was a little
has
bit.
to be the third slot. 1 has 0. 1 0. Well, actually, okay, it's 1 0 7. Yeah, that looks right.
Hey.
Yeah, I think that having the super chip resolution definitely helps the gameplay on this. I think everything is pretty clear and easy to read with this presentation, but you could see how it would be much, much harder to have unambiguous hints and UI feedback with a quarter of the screen real estate.
Yeah.
And it seems like a very solid implementation, and it's amazing how little information you really need. Just I guess the initial thing was knowing that the green. At first, I would think I would think an empty. If that black square is missing a single pixel, that would be in the wrong position, and that full green would be correct until I see that black usage for the first time.
That's true.
So maybe have a key for that. Not a big deal. People will get it eventually, but a tiny bit of tutorialization is always nice.
All right. Safecracker.
Safecracker.
Safely cracked. One safe.
Skellspresso.
Yeah, this is by Jacoboko.
I like the color scheme.
So Jacoboko is the author of last year's runaway hit Fest, the game of speed.
I just love the
serving coffee.
The beans are very nice. I feel like there should be like one skull among all the beans, though.
Oh, sadness. So you need to choose the right item on the menu to the
Oh.
right. That was something that was a little bit unclear to me at first. Is how you've got a menu on the right and the gameplay sort of towards the left and
Oh, there's
center.
a C, not an E. That's confusing.
I feel like you might want to display, instead of using the first letter, unless you somehow make the first letter more obvious, like an icon would be really nice.
It's kind of tricky to come up with unambiguous icons
I keep
that
losing
are this
because
size that distinguish between those different types of coffee.
Yeah, I guess trying to think of the difference between between those four cups. I feel like you almost want to use different, like, I guess the coffee theme is integral, but
I think that letters were probably the right choice given the other constraints. But from like a user interface perspective, this game requires you to like constantly kind of dart your eye back and forth between this menu that's off in the corner and the rest of the playfield. So I think it might have been a good idea to like move that menu, put it somewhere closer to the middle of the screen. Maybe make it a little bit more obvious that it's user interface and not just a decoration.
yeah, having it across the bottom as a banner, being able to switch
Maybe.
that way would be good. I think having the first letter, like if you make each first letter essentially in a square, then have the outer edges, like that square looks different compared to each one. So suddenly that becomes iconography. That would
Yeah.
probably be a good way of trying to get some uniqueness to each thing. And like, okay, there's no corners on this square, so that's a mocha sort of concept. That would
Yeah,
kind of
like
add some
for example, the C that is used in the speech bubble is a slightly different C than the C used on the menu for space reasons, obviously. But it does help. It does kind of draw a distinction between those things that could be a little bit confusing.
It's interesting, actually, that some of those words are 4 letters tall, and some of those are 5 letters. That's interesting that espresso and latte are larger. I wonder. I guess those letters, just specifically the E's and the S's, kind of warrant it. But it does. It creates these variations that actually do kind of affect the things.
Does this have a scoring system at all?
Don't see one. Did it when you die? Does it tell you how many you got though?
Let's see. Nope. Man, that's kind of a bummer.
Yeah, a scoring system would definitely be an enhancement.
High scores are very important. They keep people playing again and again.
All right, scale espresso.
Very nice sprites. Love the beans.
Yes, they've got our signature style and they're sticking with it.
Looks like we're in the last 3 here. We're gonna do Wave, Maze, and then close out with Octoma.
Don't forget the nonogram game.
Which one's that?
That was the separate submission.
Ah, right.
Oh yeah.
I have it, yeah. I have it? Let's see. Oh, right, I opened it. Let's do it like that. Okay. All right. So this is just the logo?
Yeah, so this is like a template ROM that was made for a multi-platform emulator written in Scratch, which is kind of terrifying. But it's a simple
oh my goodness
program. It's written in Scratch.
I've never actually seen Scratch before.
Yeah, Scratch is a visual programming tool. It's largely targeted at like elementary schoolers or kind of introductory programming stuff.
That's great. I love
But
that
it's also popular among emulator hobbyists.
I love that it lets you have like super long animated avatars. They have like an animated Calvin and Hobbes strips, and I'm wondering what the file size for that is.
I mean, I have a GIF that is all of Shrek.
That's a good GIF.
Into a GIF.
That should really be like what was that thing they sent out into space? That should really be embedded for other civilizations, other races to enjoy, other species.
I can't even begin to parse what's happening here. Anyway.
Well, that's just like a toolbox of pieces that you can put together.
Is it?
Yeah, the main conceit in Scratch is that instead of syntax, you have these blocks, and they only fit together in ways that are syntactically valid. So here's what the program itself looks like.
That's
You
super
have these chunks made out of blocks that are fit together.
It'd be cool if you could build like Lego structures out of them too.
Yeah, and it's really just it's a programming language. Semantically, it's not that different from JavaScript or C or what have you.
Nintendo DS emulator?
Oh,
Yeah,
oh
it's
no.
a multi-platform emulator, including exochip capabilities.
Where's the code for the Nintendo DS side of this thing?
I think we could probably rat hole on this for a long time.
Yeah,
Oh
this is-
my!
Just-
Oh god!
It reminds me of like Click and Create and the Games Factory and Multimedia Fusion. It's like just a big grid of trying to line things up. This is
It's
kind
a
of
little bit
crazy.
less spreadsheety than
Yeah, this is
than-
much
This is
better than that.
smaller than I thought it would be. I keep moving.
well, it comes in a lot of pieces.
Are these all like individual like little pieces, or?
Yeah.
I mean, in terms of like, because this looks like not that much code.
I'll be honest, it looks a lot like code at this point. Like,
Well, it is. It's
Yeah.
It's from an abstract syntax tree perspective. It's not really that different from any textual language. It's just that you're using these visual elements that fit together instead of textual syntax. The advantage is that you can't make syntax errors. The blocks don't fit together, or the blocks will have an obvious hole. The disadvantage is that it means that you got to do a lot of stuff by mousing around. A
yeah.
lot of dragging and dropping to make elaborate programs.
That's pretty cool. All right. Next game here is Maze.
Yeah, so this is an unfinished prototype game by Zlinius. So there isn't really any gameplay here. It's mainly just a environment that you can kind of page around in. There's different graphics on different screens, so you can see how this was kind of intended to be the start of an adventure game. What's a little bit non-obvious about this and kind of interesting if you poke around in the source code is that it's not using canned images for screens. It's actually using kind of a procedural layout approach for placing elements. Like it's actually using a hash code in order to decide how to distribute those flowers around on the
Oh,
Oh, it's
on the
neat.
roads. So it's procedural content generation. I think it would be interesting to see more of this fleshed out in the future, maybe for a future jam.
yeah. That's
It's
neat.
like the interest-building teaser of his world space, and we all want to know like more about the flowers on the walls in the road.
Mhm.
And we've accidentally started playing The Witness again.
Right now.
I started that up I think the other week and was going through it, and it's amazing how much like some of the puzzles I remember, and then some of the puzzles I mostly just remember being bullshit, and they're still just as bullshit as they were when I just remember like, oh, this was frustrating. Yes, this is just as frustrating as it was before going into it.
Okay, so this is a submission by Verisimilitudes. So this is a nonogram game, and it's a game that needs a little bit of explaining for its user interface. You might want to just refresh, John, to start off. So the game board looks and works the way that you would expect a nonogram system to work, and the way that input works is that you press a number on the keypad for the column and then the row that you want to toggle. So like in this case, this is a pretty easy nonogram. If you do 4-4, 3-4, and 3-3, and 4-3. So another thing about the UI for this is that when you get the correct solution, you need to then press any other key before it'll recognize that that you solved it. And now it's shown you the next nonogram.
Now it's getting intense.
Now it's a little bit trickier.
I do not have the wherewithal to handle this right now.
Yeah, it felt a little bit like Battleship nonogram.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of difficult to play unless you have the keypad up, and you kind of need to reason through it. Um, it does. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, I tried giving it a play earlier, and I was like, oh yeah, I get it. I wish it said which button you pushed or something when you push, 1, 2. I wish it displayed the one that you typed in.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah,
like confirming them using some of that screen space to the right. That might have been a nice
Yeah.
addition.
yeah. If you press one, so the first time you press one, it should like light up the row essentially, like have it flicker, then do the column, and then it like there is a little bit of display that would be very helpful for knowing what you're doing if you're doing something wrong.
Yeah, I think that having to kind of fly blind is definitely something that makes this harder to play.
I probably would have said to go with less of them, a smaller grid, just so you could get like lines down. I have a little bit more visualization there because it's pretty tough. But I guess that would make that would turn into a weird sort of nonary game, a non-nonary.
And this was a game that was written using custom development tools, like a non-Octo assembler. And if you want to get some information about the developer's process, you can go to verisimilitudes.net to find out more.
All right. We're gonna move on to the last game of this showcase and of Octo Jam 8.
Octoma.
Octoma.
The Octos were all busy partying, making and playing games for decades-old computers that could barely run them. But when the squids came and saw how much fun the Octos were having, they grew jealous and kidnapped the Octo Princess. Now a brave Octo must find the sacred artifacts from the world above, adventure to the Castle Daioka, I have no idea, and defeat the Daioka wizard in order to save the Octo Princess. Will that brave Octo be you, John?
Yeah, we'll see.
We'll try.
This
Yeah,
is
so this
inspired
is
by
a-
Ultima. Okay.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
So-
beautiful.
Is there a way to make the keyboard go away?
Not once you open it, unfortunately.
Oh, look at
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. This is you're going to need to read the controls for a sec, because I didn't find this very intuitive. But like you have to hit the attack key, which is 1, and then a direction in order to attack. It doesn't work like a traditional
nuts.
roguelike where you just kind of bang in the direction. But yeah, this is great. This is by Kratmang. I believe that's how that name is pronounced. but
This is
I could be wrong.
insane. Holy
What a
crap.
great roguelike.
Yeah. This is the same developer that did Octo Party Mix last year, and he's come back with a pretty fantastic entry here. It's pretty short, but given the constraints at play here, I think it's very impressive. And like space-wise, it isn't actually that enormous. You'll see the scale of all the levels that exist here as John plays through it. But this whole game is only 9,201 bytes. So there's a lot of RAM left. And I think that part of the reason that the game is as short as it is, aside from, of course, time constraints, may also be that the way that this game approaches drawing text is a little bit code memory intensive. So if the text drawing routines were written in a somewhat more general way, I think that they could be a lot more compact, and that might have allowed for more textual descriptions and an in-game story and stuff.
I feel
I was
like.
going to ask.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, one of the challenges with making a bigger, more complicated game is you start running out of code space, which is the
Mhm.
first code that exists in the first 4 kilobytes that most like if statements, subroutine calls can actually, call and jump into
Reside.
rather than memory. So I'm wondering if this is running out of code space more than it is, high RAM
Yeah.
for the graphics.
I think that was a big limitation here. And so, the part of the way to address those constraints is, you try to build systems rather than hard coding things. But I mean, all other things aside, like you've got enemies that track you, you've got combat, you've got multiple levels. The game
Upgrades.
reads very well, I think. It has a simple graphical style that's obviously Ultima inspired, but you can tell what's going on. This is the complete package, and I really just wish it was longer.
I really like this castle, by the way.
Yes, excellent. That looks beautiful.
That is a good castle.
I feel like it's really. Are these guardsmen? Are you killing the king and his guard?
I mean, they hit me first, so
Did they?
they did.
That's how murder hobo rules work, don't you know?
Very sad. I mean, you kind of look like a skeleton. You kind of look like Sans almost with the blue jacket.
The eyes are the
That's,
wrong color.
That's canon.
That's true.
Well, you're an Octo, right? You're an...
Oh yeah, I guess so. These are the squids. You're fighting squids, and you're a noble Octo soldier.
There you go.
You
That's
got the
complete.
princess.
That was cool. I hope
Very
the author Kratmang. Kratmang. Yeah, I'd love to see more of this. I feel like you could take this and next year submit like a bigger, more detailed RPG, or maybe someone else can pick up the source code and make something inspired by this. Would be pretty neat.
So could this play on hardware effectively, or would this be very, very slow?
Well, this isn't an exochip game.
Oh,
so
okay.
again,
Yeah.
the color is kind of a giveaway.
Yep.
I think
I was going to
that
ask, what kind of
yeah.
speed does it use?
This is running at ludicrous speed. So that's 10,000 cycles per frame, which is still slower than Alien Invasion.
Sets the bar.
Yeah. Yeah, good look at. Oh yeah,
Just
you were
not good.
completely correct about code space. Look at this. Oh,
Yeah,
look at
I
those
think that
sprites.
I think that there's some room for squeezing things a little bit tighter on the code side, and there is a lot of RAM left. So basically, if he could manage to make some of the systems a little bit more general to save code space, then you could have an engine like this support a significantly larger world in principle.
Yeah.
But then, of course, there's the challenge of just making that much content in just a month of however much free time somebody has.
Absolutely.
The wizard.
But I would say that this definitely raises the bar for demonstrating what's possible.
Code
Yeah,
is well commented. Look at that.
Very nice. This feels like the most complicated thing we've seen so far. It's a very full feature.
Oh yeah,
It's
I was
up
going to say, never look at the code for Akahad. That is like a 10-hour hack fest nightmare.
You say stuff like that. I mean,
oh no.
Welcome to game development.
you didn't put a GitHub link on
I
this.
know I've not put it on GitHub yet, but I guess it's in the HTML, is it? I don't really know, but I'll put it on GitHub soon, I'm sure.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how to look at this stuff anymore.
If you go to octo
No, protect my secret.
this is a useful trick.
That's true.
So just go to octo-ide.com to bring up the Octo tool itself. And if you just use open to open one of those exported HTML files.
Oh, I'm glad it's not capturing this. Okay. Unable to unpack standalone HTML project. The secrets lie dormant still.
It's been mangled. Yeah.
My code is so bad it broke the tool. I'm so happy. Or am I?
Crisis narrowly averted.
I haven't seen this version of Octo.
It's been getting better these days. It's a lot more sophisticated. Just as kind of like a throwback, it's worth mentioning that 9 years ago when I started on this, Octo was literally a text box with a button you could click on to run the game. And now we've got, syntax highlighting, macros, emulator configuration. There's a lot of stuff built in.
It seems like one of the examples can't be run in the IDE, unfortunately, because it's too big.
So there's kind of the actual source code is separated from the emulator settings currently. And so in this case, you're trying to run.
I remember this.
It's defaulting to.
Game, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Now we're just playing Octo example games.
Mhm.
All right. That was very
Well,
impressive.
That's been Octo Jam 8. We played through every game, I believe so. What were you guys' overall thoughts and favorites?
Octoma. Holy crepe. That's really impressive. I want to see more from that for sure.
From a technical level, Octoma is a unique and designed from scratch sort of roguelike experience for Octo. Incredibly strong, really great. Visually, good progression. I actually like. Obviously, more content would be great, but I think it would be easy to make like maps kind of too long, too for what's there and the progressions that you have. Too much time spent on the areas. I think it's a good, very good timing and pacing for what it is. The other game, what was the port game that was the line drawing game that you could,
Yeah, Chipolarium
Chipolarium.
was definitely one of my standouts.
that was it's
I
so
was going to
it's
say I've
it's
been
not quite
playing it
as
in the background.
it's not quite as flashy as some of the other games, but it's a really polished, holistic experience. It looks good, it plays good.
it does
It's
have
got
an intro, and it doesn't. So the intro doesn't have the line, but it does show the sort of like showing things flipping, which is cool to see.
well, and even just the fact that the basic mechanic of this game is about XORing.
Did it save your
And
progress?
yes, it does.
Wow,
Whoa.
It's one of the games that takes advantage of that feature.
that's fantastic.
So yeah, it's the complete package in terms of being an enjoyable, engaging puzzle experience, and you know it's sort of thematically really appropriate to the way that all of the drawing you do in Chip 8 is XOR based like this.
Need to be
Uh-oh.
clever here,
New
John.
new
When
mechanic.
you're an Octo programmer, you have a lot of sympathy for mechanics that have to do with XORing stuff.
So for this, you really can you do vertical lines, or does it have to be horizontal?
The horizontal lines all have to be
Oh,
consistent.
I was going
I
to
was
say
gonna say,
we-
just do
I
vertical.
don't want to get us stuck in this one game again for 5
Yeah,
more
let's,
hours.
let's look at the other ones. Let's go back to the full list, so we can just take a look and see anything else that stood out. They're all super good.
I wanted to talk a little bit about like the Exotrip tracker.
Yes,
Because like conceptually we've been batting around like, well, what could we do with Exochip? And the question is always, well, you can make all these changes, you can decide to do things, but what you need are examples of people actually trying to use them and kind of figuring out, okay, is this a useful addition? Is this small change effective? Does it not do quite enough? And like this Kazuru, who's been working on this stuff, has been providing, like, they know their stuff, and this excites me as a game maker for Chip 8 and Exochip. Like I want to get my hands on this as soon as I can.
Yeah, and I would say that this is definitely one of the examples that's worth studying, because there's already, even just in this page, there's code that people could take and incorporate into their other programs or use as a starting point for adding more sophisticated music.
I really think the inclusion of music and having this convenient way for people to do stuff with it, it allows musicians to have a very interesting restricted space, to be in a space that'd be very interesting to play around with. And the idea of people being able to contribute to other people's projects, pull in musicians, really exciting. It's a unique, whenever you have such a restricted space, you create this unique space, unique sort of just experience, unique, same with chiptunes. Really excited to see where people take this.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think that's pretty much been Octo Jam 8. Thanks everybody for participating and writing programs and jamming with us. Thanks to all my fellow judges who've taken the time to play through all these games, and I'll look forward to seeing most of you and maybe some new faces next year.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for having us. It was a great time. Just some fantastic implementations. As always, Octo is just so exciting to see what people can pull off and hearing both you and Masty do such a fantastic job of describing the inner workings of the complexities of it. Very cool from just a layperson sort of perspective on my end. So thank you so much for having us.
Yeah, absolutely. This is just gonna do this real. Don't worry about me. Don't worry about me.
Right. Well, I suppose that's that then, eh?
Yep, I
Yeah.
think so.
All right. Well, thanks for watching, everyone. We're gonna be busy here for a bit, so
Nice face. You gotta
see yourself out. Bye, everybody. Everyone say
See
goodbye.
ya.
Bye.
Bye.